So, and I think it just started. So let me try that again. Okay. All right. Can everyone see the first slide? Just a thumbs up or anything would be awesome. Cool. Thank you.
I can see it, Joy.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay. So my name is Joy Redington. I am from the Assistive Technology Program at the state of Vermont, and I actually started my career way back in the day working in the libraries. So I know the struggles that you guys go through with, trying to make ends meet and doing things on a dime. So I have a couple of suggestions in the middle of the presentation that I used my time in the library and that we found was actually helpful for other folks. So again, quick introduction. I've been working here since 2023, so it's literally my year anniversary today, which is kind of funny. My education is I went to school. It is work. I went to school in Queens, New York. That's where I grew up, at Queens College. And then when I came to Vermont, I decided, okay, well, I want to do a little bit more than just know about English literature. So I went back to school and got my bachelor's in psychology. Now, my first piece of AT, ironically, was in second grade. It was made by my librarian, which I end up loving her for, because, kids aren't always very kind. And I have CP on my left side. So holding things with my hand on my left side is really hard. I can barely do that. So I can't really clasp the way I would with my right hand. And when we were holding books, they would always fall on the ground and all the kids would laugh and it was kind of embarrassing. And one day she quietly came up to me, and this is going back into the 80s for everyone who's too young to remember that. There was a lot of jelly bracelets and colors, and she grabbed paper clips and jelly bracelets. And I think there was a couple of rubber bands, and she fashioned this hand grip for me that because of the rubber, things weren't flying out of my hands. So I would always go there for a big stack of books because I loved the library. And she would like, hold on a second, and she would wrap the thing around it. And I was like, oh, and it looked so awesome that it didn't make me stand out. The kids wanted one. My classmates wanted one too. They were like, oh my God, this is so cool. It looks like a jelly bracelet kind of brace thing. And so she had a class where everyone made one for themselves. So it was really normalizing, and it made my school career a lot easier. They were always looking for the next thing that we were going to jimmy rig together. What do I love about this job? Oh, geez. Like, what don't I love about this job? I get to interface with so many different people in so many different areas of life in Vermont, and just helping folks the way that I was helped when I first went to the AT program as a consumer. So it's great to be on the other side helping people and also helping people learn about assistive technology. My favorite pastimes are making soap. I love music and singing, anime, and of course, reading. So we'll go to the next slide. So what is assistive technology? Now, you'll notice over here, you'll see some things that you notice, like you recognize, like the Alexa, simple glasses, a grabber, a big numbered telephone. Most folks don't think of that as assistive technology, but it really is. I know I'm in a motorized wheelchair, and if I didn't have my grabber, half of my life would be on the floor. Like everything just falls. So without my grabber, I would need to then grab somebody else to go and get the thing off the floor. This way, it helps me be independent. And the grabbers, oh, I see someone has their grabber out there. Awesome. And it's not your grandmother's grabber. These grabbers nowadays are so much better. They could grab little pens, pencils. I remember my grandmother's one had just suction cups on it, and she couldn't grab anything. So when someone suggested a grabber to me, I was like, oh, really? Like, no. But yeah, they've come a long way. Now over here, you see the sippy cup that has a long neck. Oh, it's a coffee cup or a sippy cup. I call it a sippy cup. I guess I'm still a child in a lot of ways. I love that when I'm in my wheelchair because I need one hand to steer, and my other hand really doesn't work very well to grab things. All I would have to do is then lean over and sip from my cup. Of course, if you have hot coffee in there, you have to be really careful. I learned that the hard way. But it's also good for folks who don't have disabilities. For example, my husband will use that cup when he's in his car because he transports children. He's a teacher. So he doesn't have to then grab it and then look away. He just leans over, takes a sip, and he doesn't have to worry about kids sticking things in his cup, which has happened quite a bit. So there's that. This little spoon over here, it's a counterbalance spoon, and that's good for folks who have tremors in their hand, like for Parkinson's. What it does is it levels out the tremor, and so it's then steady for the person then to bring to their face. They have things like that also for pens and pencils for people who have tremors that actually bring the pencil down to the paper. It's weighted. So the broad definition for assistive technology is a term for creative tools and strategies that help people live, learn, work, and play. Now, I want to go to the bottom part right here where it says help people live, learn, work, and play. I think as people who want to be helpful to everyone, sometimes we think about basic things. Like when I work with folks that are older, most people go right to, oh, we need toilet risers and grab bars. Yes, very important for safety. But we have to also think about what do people like to do? So for instance, for that same individual, let's say it's an older Vermonter and they're going home, they think about toilet risers and they think about grab bars, but maybe this person likes to garden. Maybe this person likes to read. Maybe this person would love to be in touch with their family across the country, let's say in California. Hello. I just could have sworn I heard a child say hello. So a lot of times what happens is we focus on safety, which is very important, but in different situations like libraries or at work, you got to think of things that also help them, do regular things because we're not just about work. We're not just about safety. We're bigger beings. We have likes, dislikes, things we like to do. And a lot of times folks stop doing things because they're not able. I'll use myself as an example. I absolutely love to garden, and the disease that I have is progressive, so it just gets worse and worse as time goes on. So that I can remember a time when I could go outside and be on my knees and digging in the dirt and all of that. I love that. But then when I started being a wheelchair user, I was like, there's no way I can do that. I can't bend over that far. I'm going to fall out of my wheelchair. So there's assistive tools that you can actually, they're either elongated or they have a curve. So then people who can't bend down or people who don't want to, like some people are like, well, that's going to tear up my knees. I don't want to do that. They can still do the things that they love to, just an adaptive way. So about our program, we get state and federal grants and funding. We serve all ages, all disability and age-related needs. And I want to say we also serve folks without disabilities. You don't need a diagnosis. You don't need a quote unquote referral from a doctor. Anybody can refer. You can refer yourself. You can refer a patron. A patron can come to you and say, could you help me get online to do my own referral? There's a myriad of ways that you can get in touch with us. So you don't have to worry about going to a doctor. You don't have to worry about seeking a counselor. Um, your neighbor needs help getting out of their house every day. You see them struggling. You may call up and say, hey, by the way, is there anything to help folks, get to their car from, A, B, and C? You can ask us questions. It doesn't have to be, well, I have to call them only when it's really important. No, we're here for every step of the journey. Even if you have any questions like, is this worth a call? And we can say, hey, maybe you can do this, this, and this before we move on to some of the higher tech needs. We're here no matter what. So we work from what's called the tech spectrum. And I know a lot of you guys are very familiar with the no tech. I remember when I worked in the libraries, we jimmy rigged everything together to make things work. And that would be just changing the environment, the tasks or schedule. So if you have a patron who comes in and they need to use the computer and maybe they're low vision, you can have something that helps with if it's attention to the computer that's hard, we have things that you can wrap around folks' glasses. If it's something where they need to have the screen closer, there is a low-tech riser that you can bring a laptop closer. High tech is more of you thinking about Dynavoxes, AAC devices, which is augmentative and alternative communication, which I don't know why they named it that. It's such a mouthful. And if you're thinking really high tech, you can think of folks that need things in order to live. That would be like the pinnacle of high tech. But we like to start with here because especially for folks that aren't versed in technology, it may be, what's the word I'm looking for? Intimidating for somebody. If you just throw high tech at somebody and they're like, whoa, I don't like computers. I don't like dealing with any of that. It just is confusing. If you want someone to have a buy-in and eventually move towards the computer, because everything in today's world is digital, I would definitely say start at the bottom and then just little increments. Like when I work with older Vermonters, that's the approach I have to take because most older Vermonters are like, don't want to look at an iPad, don't want to know about an iPad. It's just whatever. You're lucky that I'm even looking at a smartphone right now. So it's like you have to take a step back and put yourself where they are. We may have an idea of, oh, this will change your life, but if they're not going to use it, it's not going to do anything for them. So we start very slowly and move up the spectrum. So we have 3 statewide tryout centers. So one's in Burlington, another's in Waterbury, and the third is at Castleton University. We are hoping to get more and maybe even a mobile unit, which would be great for folks like me who work statewide. So you can borrow from any of these tryout centers. It doesn't have to be the one that's nearest to you. And what happens is, let's just say, for example, you wanted an iPad and you live in Burlington and you're like, oh, crud, they don't have any in Burlington. Well, what we can do is the Burlington office can then call Waterbury and Castleton and say, hey, do you guys have any extra iPads? And we send it to you or to the consumer. No cost to either the consumer to send it or to receive it back. We cover shipping both ways. We try to make it as easy as possible for folks. So this is an example of the Burlington Tryout Center. Each center has, it almost happened by accident. Each center has like a different focus. And what happens is in our tryout centers, we start noticing the areas of need. So for the Burlington Tryout Center, you'll see it's pretty much school age oriented. That's because whenever we get requests for technology, it's most likely going to be from the kindergarten to 12th grade demographic. But that doesn't mean that we can't serve everyone. Again, everyone shares that big inventory that we have, but we have them kind of segregated only because people like to come in, look at things, and if you're a teacher or a librarian or somebody who's looking for school age and they walk into a tryout center, they're like, where's all the school age stuff? We can't display everything, so we try to do it that way. Waterbury has a pretty big tryout center as well, but again, that's more towards smart home. We have a lot of smart home and office type stuff in Waterbury. But yeah, we can get anything that you see on our website, and I'll go into that a little bit later, from any of the tryout centers. You're not obligated to go to the nearest one for the item you're looking for. So now we get to have a little bit of fun. And this was a thing that they did during my training. And I went into it going, well, I use AT in my daily life, and I've done it for work before, so I know all these things. And some of them really tripped me up. So I want to see how well you guys do. And feel free to either throw it in the chat or unmute yourself and yell out what you think it is. Do whatever makes you feel most comfortable. So here's our first one. And I'll give you a hint. This part right here is not a brush. These are not brushes. I thought this was an adaptive brush for brushing your hair, and I was wrong. Does anybody have a guess they want to throw out? And if you don't know, it's totally okay too.
If you're give hints, is it for cleaning anything?
It can be for cleaning. It's more for accessing things. If you're thinking about cleaning, accessing the cleaning supplies. I'll give you that hint. You're doing the hand motions. I think you're on the right track. All right, I'm going to tell you guys, it's going to blow your mind. You ready for this? It's a knob turner. So these little things right here actually are little grips, and they push back into the knob itself. And what it does is the surrounding grips will then grip onto the knob so you can turn it. I personally love this thing for one reason and one reason only. When I'm cooking and I roll up to my stove, I'm like this against my stove. So when I lean over to then turn my knobs are up. I'm putting my hands over the burners, and that scares the living bejesus out of me. So I got a longer one like that, so now I don't have to worry about burning myself. It's also good for turning knobs, any kind of knobs, the long ones, the round ones. It's like fantastic. All right, go to the next one. Okay, now this is one that we made together, so it doesn't look as nice as the knob turner, but from working in the libraries, you guys may know what this is. I'm going to give this one up pretty quickly because it's kind of a raw photo. So this is the Eileen book standby. I'm going to go into the amazing book by Therese Wilcom, and it has all these amazing things that you can make at a fraction of a cost to help folks. So this is good for reading books. It has different levels. You see the Velcro there, and it has the other side of the Velcro on the other side. So you can use that for an iPad. You can use it for an assistive device. You can use it for a book. And I think when we mapped out how much it costs us to make one, I think it ended up being like $1.59. And with the supplies that Therese says in the book, we were able to make, I think, at least 6 or 7. So these are great if you want to keep them in the library and then pop them up when folks are reading, or if someone really needs it, you won't feel so bad if they walk away with it, things like that. And there's ways to make it even more involved in her book, which is fantastic. They have a lanyard you can wear around your neck, so then the person can have the book up against them while they're walking. It's fabulous. So I got another one for you guys. It looks like a science experiment, doesn't it? If I give a hint, it's going to give it away, but I'm going to say focus on the little prongs here. That's the important part. Don't get distracted by the Duracell battery. This is about safety. This is a liquid level indicator. So I want to make sure you guys can hear this. So, oops, let me know if you can't hear the video. Okay, or it won't start. Oh, bugger. Okay, well, it was a woman talking about how she uses the liquid level indicator, and she was pouring tea in the video. And what it does is when you get up to the top, it starts off as a small beeps, like beep, 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 beep. And like the most annoying alarm that you ever heard, it goes beep, 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 as you go all the way to the top. And so the person knows, oh, I'm going to spill. But what the newest one does, this one doesn't have it. This is an older version, but what the newer version has is right here, it has a little screen and it says out loud, it displays it, but it also says it out loud what the temperature is of the item you're pouring. So if it's scalding, the person knows I shouldn't stick my finger in there and see what the level is, because folks with low vision, that's the first thing they think of doing. I'll put my finger on the side of the cup, and once it hits my finger, I know it's too high. Well, that's good if you're doing a glass of water, or in this case, I wish you guys could see the video. She talks about, oh, I could use this for my wine, although I won't need it, you know. But for hot beverages, I mean, we don't want it all the way up to the top. So this helps. The two bottom one goes all the way down. The second one goes halfway up, and the third one is like right at the tip of the glass. So that's the one that does that really annoying beep, because it's meant to get your attention. I almost liken it to if you guys have that backup camera on your car and it starts screaming at you when you get too close. It's kind of like that. Okay. So we have a centralized referral system, and it's because of the different types of places that we have for the tryout center. What we try to do is match you up with the person who's going to help you the most. Each of us have a different specialty. So if, like, let's say for iPads and things of that nature, Tracy at the Waterbury Tryout Center is really versed in iPads. So we would then connect you with her. But if you say need something more along the lines of kids from K to 12, then we would refer you to Burlington, and someone from there would help you. It doesn't matter where they help you from, because again, we can send you materials from any of our tryout centers. So for information and assistance, we ask general questions. We do research. So for example, if you call us up and you say, hey, Joy, I have a student who comes in to the library 3 times a week, and they need something for vision, but I'm not sure exactly what's going on. They come in alone, I can't really get that much information. So say you talk to the parents and the parents are interested in learning more about AT, then you can forward that to me and say, okay, well, this is what I know about the student, and then I can go and then delve into research for them. Info about AT related services, AT funding information. This is very important because a lot of folks think that we are capable of giving funding out. We're not. We don't have a funding mechanism, but we know resources for funding, grants, loans, things of that nature that we can put into contact for you. And then, of course, schedule a demonstration. So right now, we're primarily doing our demonstrations virtual, but in cases where people are homebound or in a facility where they can't leave, we will go and do the demonstrations in person. So again, this is just going over the process in which we do our demonstrations. This is the Waterbury Tryout Center. It's not as colorful as the Burlington one. It doesn't have the cool things on the ceiling, but we have a lot of stuff there. Again, we're currently virtual, but please feel free to contact us, even with what you may think is an inane question, like, I'm not going to bother them with this. Please do, because part of what we do is educating folks. So if you have a question about, say, you heard about this AT and you're like, oh, I think this will be great. And we're like, you know what? A couple of folks have tried out that AT and it really didn't work for them. Maybe you should try this. Please call us. It's not a bother. So the equipment loans, this is one of the exciting parts. Try before you buy, especially in the case of iPads that are $1,200 each. A lot of folks don't want to go out and buy it if it's not going to work for their needs. There's I think now it's almost like 4,500 items, 30-day trial period. Now, again, I'm going to use the iPad as an example. iPads are probably the only ones that will be really strict on that 30-day because there's a wait list. But most things, if a person says, I really didn't get a chance to try this out that much, we can renew it like the library and extend the borrowing. We can do that too. All equipment ships for free. So whether you have it shipped to the library for use at the library or shipped to the actual consumer's house, it goes there free and it returns to us free. We give you a label and a box and everything. We don't sell any equipment or provide financial loans. It's just something we can't do. Now, AT for All, this is our online inventory. So if you go to the website at the bottom of the screen, you'll see it's almost like an online catalog for the library. It lists all the things that we have, if it's out, if it's in, which tryout center it is. It even gives you the retail price, because bottom line, what's the sense of somebody trying something out if it's too expensive for them to buy? That's just a tease. So we want to inform the consumer, the person who is referring, the actual prices of things. Like, for example, I had a person who borrowed something called the Orcam, and that is for people who are blind or low vision, and it will read people's faces, it will read dollar bills, it will say you have a door in front of you. It's an amazing product, but for all those amazing things that it does, it's $4,000 for it. So if someone is thinking about that and I'm like, well, we have it here and I would love for you to try it, but keep in mind, it is $4,000. Some people will be like, oh no, forget it. And I would rather not waste someone's time if that's not in their budget. So books about disabilities in AT for All. So we have a comprehensive list of not only the book that helped us make that little riser, but also books on disabilities and all different age levels. I want to see if I can show you. I'm going to send it to Karen to send out to you guys, but I have a Excel spreadsheet of the books. So I'm just going to stop sharing for a quick second. And then I'm going to share. Then I'm going to share this. Or is it not going to let me? Oh, here it is. Okay. It was hiding on me. Okay, here we go. So as you see up here, we have all the different books. So I will start at the beginning. So right here, Daddy's Different, a look at brain injury through a child's eyes. So we have books that are great for children, but we also have like different things that will help support people with disabilities. So what I was thinking about when showing this list to you guys is, I know for a fact, because I used to work at the libraries, you guys have a very limited budget to buy books. And this is another way of taking a look at the book, reading through it and say, is this good for my patrons? Does this make sense for my patrons? Are my patrons looking for things like this? So then you can read through the book without having to go and order it and then go, oh, great, this doesn't work for anybody. And now we're going to have to sell it at book sale. Because a lot of these books are pretty expensive and they're like textbooks. Like this one right here, Navigating College, a handbook on self-advocacy written for autistic students. So that is a pretty thick book. So, something like that you guys wouldn't want to spend $250 on if it didn't pertain to your particular patron, what they want to look at. So I can definitely make this available to you guys, but also just know if you go on the AT for All website and you put in, let's just say this one right here, Perfect as You Are. If you knew the book name. We don't have the ISBN numbers, which really kind of tweaks me out a little bit because I worked at the libraries. I'm like, I don't know how this is going to work, but we have it in alphabetical order for now. And my dream would be to have the book and have the ISBN number. So then when you go look at it to see how much it is, you'll know exactly how much you need to budget for. So I'm going to stop sharing this and go back to our slides. And I appreciate your patience as I switch back and forth through things. Does anybody have any questions so far? I gave you guys a lot of information, and I don't want you having to feel like you have to wait until the Q&A. Oh, I see something in chat from Eric. What would you recommend for folks looking for financial assistance for AT? That's a great question, Eric. Thank you. So for that, there is something called the Freedom Fund, and it's through Opportunities Credit Union, and they give low rates for people who are buying AT because most AT is really expensive. I think the minimum is $500, and then they will then do a low interest loan for that. There are grants out there specific to people's disabilities, like for example, the Christopher Reeve Foundation does grants, and actually we're working on a grant for them as well that will go for libraries. It will go for individuals, and people can then write into them for this grant and say why they need it. For that specific example, it would have to be, of course, having to do with paralysis because it's the Christopher Reeve Foundation. But if that's to say it was for, someone who is autistic, then we could go to different autistic foundations in New England just in itself, and there's a bunch, and they can then request funding that way. Say the name of the CU again, please. I'm sorry, I don't know what CU is.
I think they mean the credit union that you mentioned.
Oh, okay. Alphabet soup. See, I went right
know,
into
yeah.
what you meant. I was like, I don't think that's what they meant. It's Opportunities Credit Union. It's out of Burlington, I believe. And I'll put it in chat too. Okay. Now this is the Bible, as I call it. I love, love, love this book. It's kind of a thick workbook, but it goes step by step in how you can make things to help folks with AT needs that are just, it's low tech, which is great. But again, it's for, if you're on a budget and you need something quick, that is the book. That's how we made the little riser for the book, was out of ideas from here. And that is also in our lending library. So now we're back to iPads. It always comes back to iPads, doesn't it? So iPads are fantastic devices. If it's just for communication, and I shouldn't say just for, but if it's for communication, it's a great device. It's a lot cheaper than some of the others like Dynavox. I know a Dynavox is, I think, $5,000 or $6,000 now. For executive functioning, so talking about folks with autism or on the spectrum at all, time management, organization, reminders, and voice typing, the iPad is really good at that. All these different apps that you can download. And then alternative access modes. So for folks who don't have the best dexterity, we can have styluses, which we also have in the lending library, which is great. Most places don't have accessories because they get lost very easily. But for us, it makes sense to have the accessories because that's the thing that people really want to test out, whether it works or not. Switch control. So you can see right over here, this little yellow switch, you can hook that up to the iPad. Speakers, cases, key guards, anything you can imagine would be a good accessory for iPads, we have it. Oh, and thank you, Karen, for putting the link for Opportunity Credit Union in there. I was going to put it in after the slide. You read my mind. So iOS apps for reading. Now, some of these things you may be familiar with already, like Audible. I know I love listening to Audible in the car. It's how I keep up on my book list. And this one on the left side, Present Pal, is good for folks who have dyslexia or for folks with traumatic brain injuries, because what happens is certain glares or certain colors are really hard for folks with TBIs because it will bring upon a migraine. So we have these different overlays that you can use to help then, have your eyes adjust. But for folks with dyslexia, I don't know if you can see, it's kind of small. They have different fonts. So this open dyslexia, what it does is, I don't know if you've probably seen it on social media, like, oh, if you can read this really fast, then you can do it this way. It blackens the lines on the left-hand side of the font. So then a person with dyslexia, it'll bring their attention there. So before the brain has a chance to switch it on them, they can read it. And I think that's magnificent. My sister is dyslexic, and she did not want to use this app at all. She's like, I think, no, I'm not going to use it. I'll just use my little overlays. Well, she was in a meeting and she couldn't find her overlays. So real quick, she grabbed it to do it with her phone. And she's like, I don't have to worry about losing my overlays anymore. And it was really easy to read because of the font. So, sometimes you just got to use it to see if, it works for you, or, again, it's that buy-in. So if a person is willing to try something digitally, you go there. If not, then there's low-tech versions. There's overlays, there's little bookmarks that have a little line so they can go from paragraph to paragraph. Oh, I see there's another question. Sue says, is there a device or app we can use for someone who is hearing impaired so they can read what we are saying when they come to the desk, perhaps like Google Translator? Oh, Sue, that's a fantastic idea. That is a really good idea. You know what? I don't know of something like that, honestly. But that would be great, like almost like a caller ID at the circulation desk. So when you're talking, it comes up for them to read. The only thing that I've seen is when telephone calls, they have the closed captioning for things like that. So I'll have to do some research, Sue, to see if there's something besides a phone that can do that, because that would be fantastic. Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for asking that question. That's a great question. So these are some more low vision tools. So I'm working with a person who is blind right now, and he told me about this one, Seeing AI. And I know a lot of folks are really tentative about AI, and I just love this for one reason. So say a person with low vision or blind wants to eat something. All they have to do is scan the can or package with the barcode right here, and it will come up saying tomato soup, the instructions, the ingredients. It will say how to make it. And then on the left-hand side, the text-to-speech, the read and write, that's great for people who are researching, who are reading articles. What it'll do is if you highlight the text and then press play, it will read it out. And what I really like about read and write, it's not that automated voice like, read and write, low vision tools. That's so annoying. No one wants to listen to that. It has natural speaking. Oh, yeah. Almi, you're absolutely right with the closed loop systems. I totally forgot about that. Thank you. Yeah, if the person has a hearing aid and they can use a closed loop system, that's awesome. But a lot of hearing aids are actually moving towards Bluetooth. So even the closed loop system, how expensive it is, it's actually starting to become antiquated. So they're looking for a new way of doing with the closed loop system, because people who are hearing impaired love the closed loop system because they know that they can walk into any place that has that little sign that says closed loop system and they can hook into it. Now it's like you have to look for the Wi-Fi, you have to look for the Bluetooth. It's a little bit unnerving. So the other services we provide, I went into the funding resources, the AT Exchange. The AT Exchange is like a Craigslist, but it's out in the community. We just facilitate it. We don't suggest any items. We don't partake in any of the back and forth. It's literally like a Craigslist or a marketplace. So let's just say I'm getting a new wheelchair and my wheelchair is still good, but I have no use for it anymore. And wheelchairs are expensive. I can put that on the AT Exchange, and then someone who's interested in it can then call me directly and say, hey, I'm interested in your wheelchair. But it could be as something as simple as a reading device or a large print telephone, but it goes all the way up to durable medical equipment. So if there's things that you start noticing that your patrons need, and sometimes they're for free, you can go on there and say, oh, I see this, device that I can use in my library. It's a really good resource. And there's our website again. You can learn more about the AT Exchange. We also have a YouTube channel. So all the fun videos that you weren't able to see during my presentation are on our YouTube channel. So let's just say you're interested in, like what Sue said, I'm interested in finding something that can help people understand what I'm talking about when I'm at the circulation desk. You can see if we've done anything about that on our YouTube channel, and it'll teach you how to use it, and it'll teach you how to set it up. We have setup, we have little trainings, and then we have some fun stuff. So for example, if I teach someone how to use an iPad, and like anyone else, me included, I walk away from a webinar, I walk away from a training, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, how'd they do that again? And of course, it's a few days before you get the slides and the training, so you don't want to go through all that. So you can just go on the website, on the YouTube, and watch the video again. We also have newsletters. They're a lot of fun. So if you like learning about new AT or AT that is being used in Vermont by people in our everyday lives, subscribe. What we do is we try to review things or write newsletters about things that are really pertinent. We don't have newsletters that are just like, hey, can you donate to us or whatever, nothing like that. Our newsletters are actually worth, getting, because each week we try to do a different topic, and each week one of the specialists will then write an article. For example, I just wrote an article on emergency preparedness. Again, I use a motorized wheelchair, and we've had a lot of power outages because every Monday, Mother Nature decides to dump a bunch of snow on us. So I talked about the generators that I have, and I'm not talking about the huge ones that are for your house. I mean, they're like this big, and you can power a computer, a CPAP, a phone, things like that. So if that's at all interesting to any of you guys, I would love to see you guys subscribe. Again, we do this 3 or 4 times because I found, again, when I'm in webinars, I'm like, what is that number again? So I try to do it a couple of times so you guys have a chance to look at it. And again, I'm going to send the slides to Karen, and she's recording this, so you'll be able to get the links. And now we're actually back to the Q&A part. So if there's any other questions or anything I can help with, I'd be happy to answer any questions. And I will leave my email in the chat, and so you guys can email me directly. One last thing. Oops, I think it went away. Why did that go away? Okay, let's go back. So for the last slide is our QR code for our survey. If you guys don't mind taking a quick with your cell phone. It'll bring you right to the survey. If you guys aren't comfortable with snapping the QR code, I can leave the link with Karen and send it out after the webinar. And I really appreciate if you guys can do that, and feel free to be as honest as possible, because we only learn more from the feedback that we get from you guys. And I want to thank you so much for having me. And if you guys have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Joy. I do have a couple of questions for you, if you don't mind.
No, I don't
So
mind at all.
the first one is about the collection of books that you have at the AT program. So say that someone has a patron who wants to borrow one of those books. Are those books, do they have the same 30-day checkout as the other AT?
That's a great question. Yes.
Okay, perfect. That's
And those
awesome.
can also be renewed a lot easier. We don't have a lot of books going out, so there's not a wait list. So if a person, I mean, especially those really thick books, 30 days may not be a long time to absorb the book. So if they, email us or call us and say, hey, is anybody waiting for this book? And we can say, no, can I re-up it for another 30 days? We'd be happy to do that.
That's great. Thank you.
No
And then
problem.
the other question that I had was, so for the iPads that you have available, do you upload, or do you not upload, do you download specific apps to those iPads if it's a person who, has a disability and wants to try out a certain app, or is that something that the person would then have to do once they get the iPad?
It depends on their comfortability. If they're comfortable being able to download it, I know the App Store is a little bit weird. Even if it's a free app, they want like an account set up or whatever. So we
Right.
typically have one that has an account on there. We try to do it ahead of time so they don't have to run into any glitches. So say they wanted that read and write one that I showed earlier, we'll be like, okay, we'll download it, troubleshoot through any like incompatibilities, because that happens a lot too. Someone will say, I'm really into motion and I want to try that for productivity. We go on the App Store and it's not being supported anymore. So then they would run into like a loop. So we would rather download it and say, oh, well, that's not available. Is there something else? And do that whole back and forth troubleshooting.
Right. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Clover. That's a really good question. Actually, I don't think they are available through Clover, but I know that I know you guys typically have a audiobook center that you guys go through. Is that for every?
That's me.
Is that you?
Yeah,
Yay!
that is me.
So I guess they can check with you to see if it's on audiobook, whatever
Right.
book they're looking to get.
And maybe, Joy, we can talk offline about this, because the Department of Libraries, what they're talking about with Clover is that, is it available? We have an interlibrary loan program, so libraries can borrow from each
Oh,
other
right.
and from us. And so maybe there's a way that we could get these books onto Clover so that libraries can just pull them that way. But we can talk about that
Yeah, I'd love to.
and see if it's a possibility. But
I put
if
two
people are,
programs together in my brain. I
yeah.
knew what Clover was, but then I was like, no, audiobooks.
But I'm happy if people want to reach out to the ABLE library. I'm happy to then pull the books from the Assistive Technology Program and send them out to people if that works.
Okay, let's see. Oh, I see another question from Sasha. Could you give a few more examples of AT for kids that you find exciting, or the elderly? Do you lend bright lights for vision? Oh, very good question. So we do lend lights. It's part of our smart home division, but we also have just regular lamps that have the light bulbs that are good for reading, or they have the ones that go from the cool light to the warm light. So then a person can find whatever setting is good for them for reading. So we definitely have those. Let's see. AT for kids that you find exciting. There's so many AT apps for kids that I would need another presentation just to go through all of that. I'm happy to send Karen a list, or Sasha, if you feel comfortable leaving your email address with me. Actually, I'll leave my email address at the chat and you can email me, and I have an Excel spreadsheet of a bunch of different apps, and we can talk about maybe some kids apps that are more pertaining to your particular library and the patrons that you serve. No problem. Did I miss any other questions, Karen?
I think Almi asked for the apps that you download onto the iPads for folks before you lend them out. Do you only download free apps, or will you also download apps that you have to pay for?
That's another good question. So we do have our own account, and we will download apps that are cost prohibitive for folks to try. So we have a demo iPad that has a bunch of paid apps that we can then transfer to different iPads. So it depends on the app. And if we don't have it already in our library, we can then download it if that's one that, a particular patron needs, or if you want to learn how to use a particular AT device for your patrons. It doesn't necessarily have to be directly for the patrons, but if you want to learn, you are able to take things out of the AT library as well. It doesn't, like I said before, and it's hard to even get that in your head because we're so groomed as a society that we need validation to get A, B, and C help. That's the great part about the AT program. When I joined the AT program as a consumer, I just went through having a TBI, and I had a great team of doctors, but I did not want to talk to another doctor or another professional. It was just like, I can't even. But when I heard that I could refer myself to the program and talk to a specialist and tell them what I need, it was like a weight off. It was like, oh, so there's no requirements, no disability requirements, no financial requirements, no, you have to go to your primary care first requirements, none of that. So if there's a piece of AT that you're interested in, like a program on an iPad, and you email me and say, hey, Joy, do you have this particular thing? And if we don't, we can look into getting it for you. It's no big deal, and we can send it right to you. So if you want to try it out to make sure you're proficient in the AT, so then you can help your patrons, then we're still doing our job. So it has nothing to do with you not being the consumer. So feel free to then check out things yourself too.
I see someone typing, so if anyone has any other questions, now's the time. We have 5 more minutes with Joy, who, thank you so much for your presentation. It was very, very informative, and I learned a lot, and I hope other
I'm
folks did
glad.
as well.
And I'm very proud of myself that I stayed on time this time, because sometimes I get really excited about certain things and I can kind of go on a little bit. So I was like, yay, I left enough time. So yeah, if there's any questions that you guys have before I leave, I'm going to pop my email into the chat. Feel free to email, or you can call the central number, either one. We try to make it as accessible as possible, because I know a lot of folks do not like talking on the phone. So we have, so we do email. We're working on a chat feature for folks who can't speak on the phone and also can't type. So we want to have some kind of a chat function to help people that are just in the crux of doing things and oh, I don't really want to talk to someone, or I don't want to grab my computer to email. So stay tuned for that. Oh, my last name is Redington. I'm sorry. Did I not say that? I get so into the whole thing. I'm like, hi, I'm Joy. And everyone's like, Joy, what?
I'm going to go ahead and stop recording at this point.
Okay.